Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat. We're the show that's trying to make the world safe for ADHD and ADHDers. I am a clinical neuropsychologist in private practice, and about half to two-thirds probably of my practice has to do with ADHD, children and adults. And we do mostly evaluations nowadays, honestly, but I have in the past done a lot of therapy and so on. I'm also the parent of an ADHD child, and as such, starting back in the days when we started, I probably say this every week, but we made probably every mistake you can make raising an ADHD child. Because back in those days, honestly, ADHD wasn't very well known, and it wasn't even for sure that it was a thing. In spite of the fact that it's been described in medical literature for 200 years and treated with Ritalin for 100, there were still some doubts commonly about whether it was a real thing. As a matter of fact, I never heard word one about ADHD the whole time I was in training. From grad school to my residency, just didn't hear about it. And so when we had this child I wasn't sure exactly what to do with, I went to the experts. I obviously had connections in the psychological community, and I had people who had had extensive postdoctoral training in pediatric psychology. Sorry about that, I had a little technical thing going on. Anyway, and I had them do an evaluation, and they didn't exactly know what was going on. So that shows you that, if nothing else, getting a good evaluation, first of all, it's easier nowadays. There are more people who know how to do it than there were back in the day. So you can get a good evaluation, and you can tell you have a good evaluation because you have a detailed feedback session and a copy of a report that tells you exactly what's going on in a lot of different areas. Okay, doing an ADHD evaluation is a pretty intense undertaking for a neuropsychologist or a psychologist, because a lot of times what you're doing is more ruling things out than ruling things in, and that takes more time and a lot more energy, frankly. Okay, but that's not what we're talking about. Today we are on one of those holidays that's associated with the consumption of a lot of sugar. We have a couple of those over the course of the year. Matter of fact, I think almost every real holiday we have has something to do with eating a lot of stuff that you don't normally eat. And what I really wanted to talk about is ADHD and the way ADHDers react to sugar. Okay, now diabetes is characterized by what we call hyperglycemia. That is, they have too much sugar because they're not metabolizing it correctly. It's a little known thing that all of us go through cycles of hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia, which is low sugar. Okay, and the deal with all of that is that some folks at the extremes, either if you're hyperglycemic, if you've just finished 3 candy bars, you are hyperglycemic. But it only lasts for about 30-40 minutes. For a while there, your blood sugar is way too high, and then your body starts to go, oh, wait a minute, and your pancreas starts secreting insulin like crazy, and your blood sugar goes from way high to way low, and that happens in like 20 or 30 minutes. And then you're hypoglycemic. Now, for anybody being either hyperglycemic or hypoglycemic, that is having too much sugar or too little sugar, is uncomfortable. Okay, you are a little, like if your blood sugar is low, you're normally kind of irritable, edgy, you don't feel quite right, you're a little impatient, irritable, that kind of stuff. With the hyper, you're just a little hyped up. And like I said, those you only got about a half hour between each extreme. And that is bad enough for most of us. Most of us, at least when we're adults, we learn that, maybe eating 3 candy bars in a row is not the best thing to be doing, or, having a hot fudge sundae and a cup of coffee maybe is not real smart. And we slow it down because for anybody it's uncomfortable. Now, for an ADHD person who's having difficulties anyway with a lot of the things we take for granted in terms of control, impulse control, and emotional regulation, we know ADHDers have troubles with that. Well, if you put an ADHDer and you give him, maybe a basket full of candy, and then you let him eat it first thing, and then you pack him up and take him to church to sit still for an hour, that is a recipe for disaster. You're going to have troubles, okay? There's no doubt about it. His physiology combined with his neurologic condition is going to result in some real bad acting out kinds of things. You can ameliorate, you can modify this somewhat by making sure you have a high protein breakfast, ideally before they get to the candy. Then you're doing about as much as you can do, other than just, totally not allowing candy in the house, which is probably not very practical. And if you're like me and you come from a long line of people who used to eat oatmeal cookies for breakfast, it's going to be hard to give up the sweets. But, with an ADHD kid, you got to do special things to help compensate. Protein, eggs, peanut butter, that kind of stuff gives your body a fighting chance against the however much sugar there is in a candy bar. A lot, anyway. And so when you're using protein, will counteract it a little bit, okay, and keep your blood pressure from bonking weight all the way out. But it's still, you're likely to have some irritability, but you've done probably all you can do to kind of make up for that. And then the next ideal thing is to have them in a situation where they can just burn off a lot of energy. A long walk, a run, a hike, a bike ride, a swim, whatever kind of exercise is available and handy in your area. Just throw them out in the field with a ball of some kind, a soccer ball, football, whatever, and let them wear off some of that energy and irritability. I mean, exercise is a wonderful thing. It's a regulator of emotions. It's a regulator of a lot of physiological processes. It's way more important than just being in good physical condition. It's your body really needs it. Your mind really needs it. And so that's another way you can handle it is, sure, let them have sugar, but make sure they got an outlet, a place where they can go to burn it off, or an activity they can engage in to take it off, burn it off. Those are basically your two main options. High protein to balance it, and then, well, there are actually three when I think about it. then a place to burn it off, and then timing it, okay? If you leave out the basket of candy for them to have, and they've got 2 hours of eating chocolate bunnies and stuff before you even get up, you are really fighting to catch up, okay? That's going to be a problem. They're going to, they're going to be already hyped before you even get downstairs. And they may have already gone through several cycles of, real high sugar, real low sugar, before you even get up. So you're fighting to catch up. So if you can time it so that maybe we have breakfast and then we do the baskets, that would be ideal. Sometimes that's not practical, but if they get started a little bit early and then you can interrupt it to, get a couple of scrambled eggs down them, that will help you out a lot during the rest of the day. And then, of course, if they have, situations like, church, of course, where you're likely to, depending on how old they are, they may go off on their own, or they may stay with you for a while, and then you've got to try to time that so they're not still kind of hyper or hypoglycemic, either one. I don't know if they're eating candy jelly beans all the way into into the service. Good luck. And then they're supposed to sit. They're supposed to pay attention, all that kind of stuff that they're not really very good at. And if you jack them up with a bunch of candy on top of that, you're going to have problems. I'm just saying. So protein, exercise, timing. Those are the things you have at your disposal to try to minimize the disruption caused by this kind of commercialized celebration, if you will. So you want your child to do the best they can, as much as they can, and your job is to help them compensate for the things they can't control. And how they handle hyper or hypoglycemia is one of those things they can't control. That's, they inherited that. They inherited the ADHD. They already have some troubles with impulse control and emotional regulation, which is just a fancy way of being able to stay calm. So that's a problem that they didn't ask for, and they didn't. It's nothing that anybody did except for the gene thing. But it's not their fault. It's totally predictable, and anything that's totally predictable means there's not a lot of blame involved. It's a natural thing. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. If you're an ADHD parent, that certain things are inevitable with an ADHD child, and that, or hopefully by now you do, that filling them with a lot of candy is likely to cause you some difficulties and maybe some embarrassment if you go that way. But you want to know that you have some control. You use the control you have as best you can, and that's all you can do. Sometimes no matter what you do, you're going to have episodes. I'm sorry about that, but that's just kind of the way it is. So you do the best you can. Like I said, high protein, exercise, timing it, trying to get it so that when they consume is something that you'll have time to compensate for, or their bodies will have some time to compensate for. Okay, well, that is my run on hypoglycemia or high sugar in your kid and low sugar in your kid, and the effects it has and how to handle it. The good news is that we're not going to talk about this next week, and we're going. ADHD is a vast sort of area. Okay, there's a huge amount of information and a huge amount of what do I want to say? There's a huge amount of research being done continuously. Stuff is changing all the time, and we're getting more and more information. So I'm picking and choosing, trying to give y'all the best stuff I can, or the most and the most current stuff I can. But be helpful if you could. If you got questions specifically, ask away. You can do it down below, or you can do it to my website. Either way, and it would be helpful, it kind of to know what exactly y'all are thinking about and that sort of thing. Okay, so I am Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the program trying to make the world safe for ADHD. And remember, your child is an outside-the-box thinker. He or she can't help it. That's the way they were born, and you best learn to enjoy it. Outside-the-box thinkers are the people who change the world. So maybe your child is going to be the one that's going to make huge changes in the world. I hope so. Okay, so cherish that, and cherish that notion. And we will catch you next time. Thank you.